Dr. Nathaniel Crowe had always been obsessed with the boundaries of life and death. In the quiet, mist-shrouded town of Blackwood, Oregon, nestled in the shadow of ancient pines, he carried out his experiments. For years, he had worked tirelessly to create a serum that would halt the spread of diseases, any disease, but his ambition grew darker. He began to ask a dangerous question. What if death itself could be reversed? In a hidden lab deep within the town's only hospital, Dr. Crowe injected the serum into a cadaver, a young man who had succumbed to a rare, untreatable illness. His calculations were precise, his theory flawless, or so he thought. As he watched, the body twitched, fingers curling into claws. Then a breath, a rasping, inhuman gasp, escaped the corpse's throat. The man was alive, or something like it. But there was something horribly wrong. His eyes, milky and vacant, reflected none of the man he had once been. His skin began to crack, black veins crawling beneath the surface like living parasites. The corpse let out a low growl, its body convulsing as it lunged at Dr. Crowe. In a panic, the doctor grabbed a syringe filled with a powerful sedative and jabbed it into the thing's neck. It collapsed instantly, lifeless once more. Or so he thought. Crowe sealed the body in a containment chamber, unsure of what had just transpired. He returned to his notes, trying to figure out what had gone wrong, but it was already too late. That night, the ventilation system in the lab malfunctioned. An invisible, deadly pathogen began to leak out, carried by the currents of air through the hospital and into the town. The next morning, Blackwood was eerily quiet. The townspeople began falling ill, with symptoms starting like a mild flu, but the sickness progressed rapidly, ravaging their bodies within hours. The infected began to stagger, their skin paling and their eyes clouding over like the cadaver in Crowe's lab. Then they turned. It spread faster than anyone could have imagined. The virus wasn't transmitted by blood or saliva alone. It was airborne. Simply breathing the air in Blackwood was enough to seal your fate. Those infected became violent, mindless creatures driven by hunger, hunting anyone who still drew breath. Crowe watched from the hospital window as chaos engulfed the town. He had to stop it. But deep down, he knew the truth. There was no cure. He had unleashed something far worse than he ever intended. In desperation, Crowe suited up in protective gear and ventured into the hospital's ventilation system, hoping to shut it down and stop the virus from spreading further. But as he crawled through the narrow ducts, he could hear the guttural growls of the infected echoing through the walls. The virus had spread too far, and now it was inside the hospital. As Crowe reached the ventilation control panel, a hand, cold, rotting, and lifeless, grabbed his ankle. He turned to see one of his infected patients, its decayed face twisted in a grotesque snarl. With a scream, the doctor kicked free, but he knew it was over. He had breathed the same air as the infected, and soon, the virus would claim him too. In his final moments, Dr. Nathaniel Crowe sealed the ventilation system, locking himself inside with the very horrors he had created. Outside, Blackwood was falling, and the wind carried whispers of death through the trees. But the virus, it was still in the air. And as the wind blew across the Oregon hills, the disease traveled farther. The rest of the world had no idea what was coming, and it was already too late.